Hello, everybody. Um, we are going to talk about why everybody, and I mean everybody, underestimated Candace Owens. Can we talk about it? So, this includes TPUSA, the media, the FBI, the CIA, and our own government. They all completely underestimated Candace Owens and they completely underestimated the American people. And because they underestimated Candace, I think that is why they are having such a strong reaction to Fort Huachuca, to TPUSA, to Erica Kirk, etc. So people have been asking me, what do I think? What do you think about all this? You're posting videos of Candace. What are your thoughts? So I'm going to share these with you. The first thing is, I think that long gone are the days where people just believe the government. I think COVID ruined that. I think we were very naive prior to 2020. Some of us, not all of us, but some of us were very naive prior to 2020. We thought that to some degree, the government, the American government, at least cared about the American people, that they had our best interests at heart to a degree. And we certainly didn't think that the government was just lying to us straight up. I think before 2020, we had some semblance of trust in the American government. And I think they forgot that 2020 ruined that. The Trump administration underestimated, as well as whatever government entities were involved in this, underestimated how much distrust they created with the COVID, conspiracy that happened. So we were completely oblivious prior to 2020 to the obvious conspiracies, the collusion, the atrocities that our government was complicit in. And I think we downplayed it to a degree because we thought, you know what, this is the American government. Like, we're all countries are bad, but the American government does some good things. That's what we thought. And after 2020, people started asking the necessary questions, which they should have. They were asking, well, why are we doing this? And why are we saying this? And why is this narrative being pushed right now? We learned that, oh, all of the news stations are saying the same thing. All of my friends are using the same terms. There's something wrong. Like, the government is brainwashing us. We learned that in 2020, people's eyes were opened, and that was due to social media and independent media. And people didn't want to be lied to anymore. And that's really what we're seeing, is that people don't want to be lied to anymore, and the government is behind. They don't understand this. So I think that's the whole inception of just this panic, because I don't think there has ever been a time in history where people were so readily able to just debunk government narratives, like in the face, like immediately on call in front of our very eyes. Candace is debunking all of these lies. You guys think about it. 15 years ago, this would not have been the case. People were just not on, people loved the news and they thought that the news was like the best source of information. So whatever the news said was true. And now Candace Owens is literally debunking people's lies and alibis right in front of our face. And the government is behind, and they're trying to figure out, oh crap, what is she going to say next? Um, I think the American government underestimated our ability to discern lies from truth and how much trust we have in the government. We have very little trust. And I don't think they accounted for that decision when they decided to use Tyler Robinson as a patsy, which is what I think. I think that Tyler Robinson is involved. I just don't think he's involved to the degree at which they say. But they did not account for the intelligence or the wariness of the American people, and now they're having to backtrack. So that's my initial thought on the government and the underestimation of Candace Owens. I think the government thought, and TPUSA, to be honest, they thought that they could do the same thing that they did during COVID, which was, okay, anybody who doesn't wear a mask, we're just going to shun them and call them horrible names. We're going to assassinate their character, and everybody else will just play along. And that worked during COVID for just a little. You guys, I was actually working in education when this happened. And the things that they were passing down, this, for a while we were all terrified. And then we were like, some of the stuff that you guys are asking us to do is actually just not, doesn't make any sense. This is definitely a game. And we realized it very quickly. But I think they thought that they could just do what they did during COVID. They even have, like, what was crazy to me was having all of these news stations talk about Charlie Kirk like they didn't hate him, right? I'm like, these people did not like Charlie Kirk at all. And so they tried to garner immediate sympathy for him. And what I mean by that is, it's not like we shouldn't have sympathy for him, but they wanted everyone to just go, this is such a tragedy, and this is just another instance of gun violence, and why are we doing this? They wanted us all to think that way, and it just simply didn't work. We're just not there. They thought, well, you know what, and as Andrew Colvett said, oh, people will just get tired of it. She'll lose her entire audience. We'll just bankrupt her and she'll just be quiet. And the problem is that we are no longer falling for it. So now the government's going, okay, well, we'll just keep coming up with alibis, whether that's through TPUSA, whether that's through Brian Harple, whether that's through, random influencers on the internet, right? The government said, okay, we'll just keep coming up with alibis. The problem is that we're debunking those alibis. And by we, I mean Candace, is debunking these alibis by the second. And I think the other thing here is that the government thought that we were just going to fall into a regular news cycle here, right? Interestingly enough, during COVID, our news cycle shortened, right? It was like, okay, every 2 days something different was major in the media. And I think they really believed that they could do that with Charlie Kirk. They're like, we're going to have this, like Candace said, we're going to have this big funeral. We're going to have this big moment. And then everyone's going to go, oh, another instance of gun violence. And how sad is that? And we're just going to be done with it and we'll just move on. But unfortunately, even though people's news cycles are very short with like TikTok and social media, they really thought the American people were just going to let this go. And I think it's because they underestimated how many of us connected with Charlie. And this doesn't mean that people liked him. It doesn't mean that they agree with him. I think they underestimated how many people felt connected to Charlie and felt like Charlie. They underestimated that number completely. And so when this assassination took place, and for whatever reason, all these things were not adding up, they thought, well, he was a divisive enough figure that the people who loved him are just going to say, TPUSA would never lie to us. They're so great. Of course, they're doing a great job. Of course, this is the natural pattern of things. And everybody acted absolutely normally by just turning around when someone shot in the neck, of course, right? This is normal. They assumed that the majority of the people who loved Charlie would say TPUSA was his baby. They loved him. They were amazing. And then they assumed the other half would be like, we don't care. We hated him. Assassination is what he deserved. And goodbye. And they got that part correct to a degree, but the government is not competent. I've learned this over the years. They're just not. They forgot about the people who were in the middle ground, who were like, you know what? I may not have liked Charlie, but I'm kind of like Charlie. There's a lot of people out there who are like, I didn't really care for the guy. They were like, they even thought he was racist, but they thought, I kind of say these crazy things sometimes. And I kind of, don't mind getting into arguments with people and sharing ideas. And sometimes I have some thoughts that other people, would find problematic, but nobody should really be killed for those things. And those are the people who are like, wait a minute. If this can happen to Charlie, this can happen to anyone. And we should be very concerned. And those are the people who are going after the government in this case. Those are the people that are siding with Candace Owens, who would never otherwise side with her. They would never otherwise side with Candace Owens. These people don't like her, right? A lot of these people do not like Candace Owens, but they're going, you know what? She's onto something here, because if it can happen to Charlie, it can happen to her, and it can happen to me. So people are like, what do you think? Let me tell you what I think. I think this was an assassination from multiple parties. I think it's very easy to say, well, just, TPUSA did it by themselves. I think it's very easy, or Erica Kirk did it by herself, or Tyler Robinson did it by himself. I think that this is far more complicated than we could ever imagine. That's what I think. And I think there were multiple parties involved. And I think it's because Charlie was supposed to be president one day. That's why I think there are multiple parties involved. And one thing that I've realized watching this stage that is the American government, I've realized that they have handpicked our presidents from day one. They've handpicked our presidents. So they introduced these people into these circles. Charlie Kirk was in places he should have never been as a layperson. I'm sorry, but he should have never been there, right? He knew people and had conversations with people. Like, when is is an average boy from Chicago allowed in the White House and to have conversations with people? Why? Because he was being prepped for presidency. And when you are being prepped for presidency, the whole world knows it. Well, at least the elite. That is my opinion. The elite, the other government agencies that are in, cahoots with the United States. So Charlie was supposed to be president. He was the perfect guy. He was just this white man from the middle of Illinois, grew up in middle America. He's got a wife with blonde hair and blue eyes. The reason why I say this is because they're tearing apart JD Vance right now for not having a white wife. This is perfect for the Conservative Party. But he wasn't willing to comply. And I think what we don't realize, or what we're coming to a realization as American people, is that the government of America, the United States, is not just run by the government of the United States. It is actually run by several governments. And I think that's what's happening with Donald Trump, you guys. I really firmly believe with Donald Trump, his first term, he went rogue. And the second term, they said, if you want to be president, you will do what we say. You will do exactly what we say and how we say it. And I think that's why we're so disappointed in some of the things that he's done, is because he's not acting as independently as he was in his prior administration, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that the American government is not just run by Americans, it's run by foreign entities as well. And I'm not just using that as a code word, I mean by multiple foreign entities. And when Charlie Kirk decided that he wasn't going to comply, he knew too much information. Charlie Kirk knew too much. And so they said, you know what? We're just going to take him out. Now, who is that we? Do I think Erica Kirk is involved? I don't know if she was directly involved. I don't know. I think her behavior is very strange. I do. It's really hard to say that because I've never lost a spouse. I don't know what that feels like. But her behavior is very strange. Now, here's where I'm going to be kind and say, just try and give her a little bit of grace. It is very clear to me, y'all, that Erica Kirk is not a public speaker. She's not. She's not Charlie. She doesn't have the charisma. She doesn't have the quick wit. She's just not Charlie. And she doesn't even have the political acumen or any kind of political, sorry, you guys, but prowess that Charlie Kirk had. So it's interesting to me that someone is pushing her to the forefront, because I think that there's other stuff going on behind the scenes. So the way that she's behaving right now, I don't even think she knows how to be the CEO of a company. I don't. I think she's really struggling with that. And so her behavior is coming across as odd. Now, the lies about her boyfriend and her dating history, again, I think that whoever is running this regime right now, with this TPUSA regime, which I think it is, TPUSA stopped being Charlie Kirk's a long time ago. I'm going to talk about that later. But I think that whoever's running this regime of TPUSA is just telling her, hey, just say this. This is what people want to hear. This is what the women want to hear. This is not even who Erica Kirk is. She is being pushed out. It comes across as so unnatural. The way that she's speaking, her cadence is all off. She's stumbling over her words. It's very obvious that she is not who they want to say that she is. So I'll say that about Erica Kirk. Do I think France is involved? That's another question. Here's what I think. I know that 100%, I do not believe that Tyler Robinson acted alone. Obviously, or I wouldn't be showing you guys Candace Owens' content, right? I think that if France is involved, it could potentially be because they are brokering assassins. If Egypt is involved, it's because they're a middle ground for planes. If Israel, I'm not supposed to say that word, is involved, then it's because they have some interest in whoever is the next president. If Qatar is involved, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think that I don't want to say it's France's fault. I think we're so quick to be like, it's France, it's this. I think we underestimate how collectivist the elite are. I think it's multiple people from multiple countries getting together and saying, this is how I'm going to get my money from the United States, and this is how you, president, are going to run. And I definitely think there's blackmail involved. So I'll say that piece. but I don't have a strong enough opinion. I don't have enough information right now to say that it was definitely France, or it was definitely Egypt, or it was definitely, Philadelphia, I guess is what Coach Collin calls it. I think that it's very suspicious that all of these people who are close to Charlie Kirk were on the same fort 24 hours before his assassination. I think it's weird. Could it be for some completely innocuous reason? Absolutely. But it's weird. It's very strange. You can't pretend like it's not strange. So here's what scares me about Candace. Okay, this is why I think the government is actually panicking. Candace is very good at her job. She's very, very good. I think the problem with Candace Owens is because she's so good, she keeps stumbling upon things that are irrelevant to the Charlie Kirk case, but very relevant to government secrets. So, for example, having Trump call her to say, hey, like, you need to stop talking about Brigitte Macron. I don't think in a million years that Candace Owens thought that our government would even care. Right? But here we are. It's because she's stumbling upon things that if Candace thinks a little too hard, she's going to start putting the pieces together. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. They're wondering why the government is reacting so strangely. It's not just about Charlie Kirk. It's about, you know what? There are some things that we were never supposed to find out, and Candace Owens is finding out. And now that people are openly and freely sending her information, like, for example, if indeed Mitch Snow's story is true, which you guys I actually believe is true, I do think it's true. If his story is true, that's crazy. That is a level of amorality, a level of just degeneration and disgust that we probably never thought of when it came to our American government. So she's stumbling across these things, and if she synthesizes something a little too hard, she's going to put together some other weird plots that they don't want her to find out. Now, of course, they don't want her to find out, the information behind Charlie Kirk, but they also really don't want her to find out other information. Can you guys imagine if Candace Owens actually went on to find information about the Epstein files, like the actual information behind those? Like, could you imagine that? If she actually found out the source of that? That's why they're terrified. They're acting terrified. Now, that's why I think Fort Huachuca is such a big problem, because I think Fort Huachuca is not only home base to whatever was happening the night before Charlie Kirk died, but I think it's also because Fort Huachuca holds a lot of secret information. People are meeting there for whatever reason. And so it's not just about the Charlie Kirk death. It's also about the fact that she's finding out information that they never thought in a million years that she would start to discover. So I think what's going to happen next is we are going to find out all kinds of nefarious things about Erica Kirk, potentially about Charlie Kirk. There is a sort of discovery happening right now. I don't know if that discovery is going to lead anywhere. But I think we're going to find out who these people really were and who they really, really are. And here's what I do know about TPUSA and Charlie Kirk. I want to talk about the blunder of Andrew Colvette. He's a babbling idiot. I mean, just a stupid man. What's very clear to me is that Charlie Kirk was very much TPUSA. He was their PR. He was crisis management. And he was the brains of TPUSA. It is very clear to me that everybody else just followed along with him in terms of like the Charlie Kirk show. This recent blunder by Andrew Colvette tells me that he is very incompetent. Which, of course, now my next question the logical next question is, why did he get hired? Because he is, like, his crisis management skills are terrible. Like when you text someone all this information and then finally say don't share, the first thing I text someone when I'm about to text them some private information or some confidential information is I say, I'm about to text you something, do not share this. That's like PR 101. But the fact that Andrew Colvett just can't seem to shut his mouth tells me that Charlie Kirk was really the only person in TPUSA with good sense on his head. Seriously. And I think if so, let's just play for some reason if they're not involved at all, like Andrew Colvett, Erica Kirk, the amazing Mikey McCoy. At the very least, they're idiots. They're incompetent. They're not well equipped for this job, right? So again, the next logical question is, why are they still employed? In any other agency, with this many mistakes, they would be fired. So these are the kind of questions that I'm asking. Why are you still employed? If I leaked confidential information for Google, Apple, PayPal, I don't know, Marshall's Home Goods, I'd be fired. I'd be fired. Why isn't Erica Kirk firing these people? Because they're doing an awful job. And that to me tells me that something very, very fishy is going on. Something in the buttermilk is not clean when it comes to TPUSA. Okay? Something in the buttermilk is not clean. Here's another thought I have. I think people are very afraid that they will realize I think the government is very afraid that people will realize that Charlie Kirk didn't know as much as people thought he knew about TPUSA. I'm going to do an entire video on TPUSA faith because I am a conservative Christian. Okay. Like low-key reformed. Okay. This 7 Mountain mandate, all this weird stuff going on. This is all wholly unbiblical. The TPUSA faith section is wild to me. Especially because Charlie Kirk basically held pretty reformed theological beliefs. And the kind of people that he has in TPUSA faith are all over the place spiritually, theologically. So I think that we thought that Charlie Kirk had a handle on everything, but 100% Cat Matt got infiltrated. 100%. TPUSA was infiltrated through the faith division, right? And I'm saying this from a theological perspective. And that's why Charlie came out with Doge. We know that. And I think one thing that so I've run a couple of businesses. One of the reasons why I refuse to grow is because I know that once things get too big, you do not have control over it. And you have to figure out how to place people in there who are not going to betray you. And I'm wondering, and I know, I'm not wondering, I think from the bottom of my heart, what I think happened is that Charlie Kirk thought, I can trust these people. These people are my friends up until September 8th. These people are my friends and they're never going to steer me wrong. And then he figured out that that wasn't the case. I think that's what happened. I think Charlie Kirk thought that everything was good. There was no way that he knew everything that was going on in the company. You just can't. You just simply cannot. And the connections that some of these people have with the government, with, different entities, it's just very obvious to me that they were working behind his back. And again, the question is, why are they not fired? Yes, evil has taken over. 100%. Evil has taken over TPUSA, and it's very, very obvious. The people, so I think here's what I think happened. Initially, Charlie Kirk was, running this grassroots, really sort of like, Ali Beth Stuckey posted a video of him coming in for them planning Young Women's Leadership Summit. And I loved how so basic it was, you guys. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious and I thought it was so cheesy and cheap, right? Because it was authentic. But as soon as the donor money started pouring in, that's who started running TPUSA. And make no mistake, you guys, that's who's running TPUSA right now. TPUSA is not being run by Charlie Kirk's ideology. It is no longer being run by Charlie Kirk's ideology. You have to know that. And I know that it's so hard because it they throw his face all over the place now, but it's not being run by his ideology. It's evident by what happened at AmFest. I'm going to make a whole video about AmFest and all the reactions to that as well. But we know that Charlie would have never had Ben Shapiro on stage. He would have never done it. He wouldn't have done it. CBS News would have never accepted Charlie Kirk. They would have never accepted Charlie Kirk. But for some reason, whoever is funding TPUSA right now is controlling it. That's who's controlling it. So I also think that this is who was controlling certain aspects of TPUSA prior to his death. And that's also something that the government is afraid of us finding out. But I believe in Candace Owens. I believe she'll do it. I believe she'll do it. I believe she'll find out. I believe she'll find out. I think she will follow every single paper trail. And I believe there are people in TPUSA who are going to help her with that. Because I believe in this case, you guys, you're asking me, who do I think is doing it? I believe if we follow the money, we will find out who did this. Who stood to benefit from Charlie Kirk being assassinated? And what did Charlie know before he died that they didn't want the world to know? Yeah. I was just saying that about Ben. Yeah. There's no way. It screams fraud. Ben Shapiro donated millions of dollars to TPUSA. He would have never done that before. He would have never done that before because he didn't like the way that Charlie Kirk was going. So I think that's really at the root of all this, is like, where was that money going? Because what they were doing, what they essentially were saying to Charlie is, we're going to fund your business and then we're going to make you president and you will do exactly what we say and you will toe the exact party lines that we said to you. And you will be like every other president in the United States. You will not. You can pretend to be independent, sort of, thinking libertarian-ish, but you stay in line, homie. You make sure you don't say those magic words: genocide, Gaza, Palestine. Make sure you don't say those magic words. And I think that's what we're seeing happening. Ben wants to be president. Do you think so? I don't think so. I think Ben knows that enough people hate him that he would never be president. That's what I firmly believe. Because I still believe that we have, to some degree, we have, number one, Ben Shapiro is unlikable. I mean, he is scum of the earth, helium voiced, riding on his midget horse. Like, he's not likable. Charlie Kirk, okay, you guys, okay, I'm going to say this and do not get mad at me. He was a little autistic, and I love that. I'm sorry, but I thought it was hilarious. So he was a little, like, the way he could recall facts and information. So he had a little bit of a tick in his eye too. I used to work with a lot of children who are autistic. He gives me spectrum vibes, right? I think Charlie Kirk was a little spectrum, and I like that. That made him quirky. It made him relatable. Charlie Kirk started to also soften his rhetoric as he got older. But nobody, like, Ben Shapiro does not have that. Ben Shapiro doesn't have that likability factor. He's not congenial. He's a thorn in my side. You know what I mean? Like, he's just not likable. So I don't think Ben will ever be brother. He was too likable. Yeah, he had influence. Like, people, the fact that these raging liberal children, for lack of a better term, wanted to talk to him on a campus told me everything I need to know about him. Is that at the very least they were like, we can have a conversation with this guy. people don't want to talk to Ben Shapiro. They just simply don't. I'm sorry, but he's not that guy. So no, I don't think yeah, I agree with you, Sam Stetson, but I don't. So here's how I think the presidency has worked for a while. I think they give us a few options, right? And then as these people start to weed themselves out, they pour money into a certain like into their top option. That's what I think. I think people give us but I think we are running out of people. I think the government, the American people, are realizing the grift. I think they're realizing that, you know what? We have to start asking for very specific things. And if you are bought and paid for by any country, we don't want you. I think this next presidency this presidential election is going to be very interesting because people are not even liking JD Vance because of his history. They're not liking who he's connected to. And what we're finding out is whether you're Democrat or Republican, they're all taking money. They're all taking foreign donations. So everybody is just being dangled in front of us, and the American people are tired of it. That's what and I think what's dangerous about Candace Owens' investigation is that she's going to figure out who's been doing this all along. Because if indeed Charlie Kirk was meant to be president, that means the people who arrange these presidencies is behind him. That's what that means. That's what that means. Yep. JD is the same. Everyone's the same. Yeah. I think the majority of us are starting to see that, are starting to just see this. You know what? We've been presented people on a platter, and it doesn't matter who we vote in. The result is the same. Whether it's, I have these arguments with people all the time because I'm like, you guys think that, oh, if I pick a Democrat, I'm going to get I'm like, no, babe. Actually, they have a pathway. So if the Americans have a Democrat president, this is how we're going to get what we want. If the Americans have a Republican president, this is how we're going to get what we want. So it doesn't matter who you vote for because the people who are running the show are going to get what they want anyway, whether that's through socialism or fascism. I think it's either way. They're like, oh, we're going to get what we need out of this. It doesn't matter. So thinking that one person is going to save you, this is why MTG left. Because she was like, I'm not doing this. She's like, I don't want to be involved in this. She's one of the only people with a conscience in the government. And I firmly believe that if Candace Owens figures out who assassinated Charlie Kirk, we are going to know who runs the world. We're going to know who runs the world. And that is going to be a sad day for Americans. And I think this is how our country ends. I shouldn't say that because it's just so sad, but I think this is how our country devolves. Because who do you vote with? Who do you vote for? Who do you vote for? You know, we're so divided. Who do you vote for? So anyway, you guys, that's my thoughts on the Candace Owens. This is why I think the government is panicking, because I think we're about to find out who runs the world. And if we indeed I'm glad someone thinks like me. So many people. Oh yeah, so many people fight. People want to be delusional because it's actually harder. It is very hard to live in the United States or anywhere in the world and know what's really happening. Now, don't get me wrong. The United States is the best, worst country in the world. It is the best. I would never live anywhere else. You can't. I mean, you can't even pretend like it's anywhere else. But people will fight you on that because they want to believe that they still have some kind of power. And that's very cute. It's like, oh, I want to, but it's like, no. I don't think that we're in as much control as we think you are. Trust someone appears. We'll find. Well, if someone just appears, I believe that they're going to. If someone appears, I believe it's going to be because someone pushed them in front of us. Let me respond to this user. I do not think that everybody who is Jewish or practices Judaism is racist and in a cult. I don't believe that. I think that just like with many other religions, that you're always going to have people who use that as a shield for their behavior. I don't live my life that way. I think that whenever people can, they use whatever they can to shield their poor behavior. And so yeah, here's what I'm going to say. I'm Black. So so a lot of people don't like me. So I don't really care if it's the Torah, if it's the Quran, if it's Asia, if it's, Southeast Asia, if it's India. I don't care, because guess what? They're all like, a lot of people don't like Black people. Like, I don't like, that's how I live my life. I'm fully aware of that. So it's not like specifically they're all this way. I don't think like that. Now, um, do I treat Scientologists the same way? In what way? Like, I don't, you know, I don't think that I don't think that everybody who practices a certain religion is racist. That would just be so silly. Now, do I think that um there are certain sects of Judaism that promote racist ideology? 500%. 500%. In the same way that people, like, there's a lot of people who follow the Quran, right? They call themselves Muslim, right? But they sort of like don't, they take out the parts where it says that Christians should be killed for their beliefs. They just kind of don't. They're like, oh, we don't really believe that, right? I think there are people who are like, we 100% believe that, and that's exactly who it is, right? And so, okay, being disliked because you're an atheist is different from being disliked because of your skin color. Those are like two different things. Okay, let's just be honest. But Scientology is a cult. A lot of religions could be considered a cult. I don't like I don't know. I think Christianity can sometimes be a cult, to be honest, because of the way that a lot of Christians pour their money into false teachers. 500% it could be a cult. But the point is that I'm not going to sit around here and live my life looking at people and going, oh, like, I have people who are Jewish who are clients. So did my check clear? Yes, it did. I'm not going to walk around being like, I don't like my check cleared. I don't care. Like, that's how most of the world operates, by the way, you guys. Most of the world knows I don't really care if you like me or not. Run me my money, and as long as my check cleared, I'm good. That's actually how life works. And when you are a mature, fully functioning, emotionally intelligent and an adult, that's actually how you live your life. Right? Yeah, I think Scientology is a cult 100%. I think 100%. But then you look at, like, who was that guy? The ones that went up and think they're going up into space. There's like, quote unquote, Christian cults too. So I think every religion can be a cult, and I think there's cults in sects of Christianity as well. To be honest, so yes, weirdo pastors. I think you get a bunch of weirdo pastors, and you get cults. And you get people who pay them money, like tons and tons of money, and they live in compounds with them and all that stuff. Of course there is. Of course there's people who are, I think every religion can be a cult, 100%. But no, I don't go around judging people by the color of their skin or their religion. I go around judging people by the content of their character. And so that's how I live my life. And that is the Christian way to live your life. It's not to look at someone and go, oop, because you're white, I don't like you. Like, I'm not like, it's just so stupid. I mean, I just don't, you know. So, um, you know, it's like, I think you don't understand. I don't think you understand biblical Christianity, because of the way that biblical Christianity works. Like, if you actually follow the Bible, biblical Christianity says you do not judge people by the color of their skin. You can discern, right? But I'm not going to look at someone and automatically say, "Oh, you're racist." I'm not going to do that. You go, "Okay, let me see how you behave." "Oh, do you behave in a way that's racist?" "Oh, then you're probably racist." It's like, okay. Wow. Oh, like, you know what's crazy is that people want me to be so triggered by racism, and I can't be. I can't be bothered to be triggered by it. It's like, I can't be bothered. I'm sorry, because when you've been called a nigger your whole life, or you've been, people put up Confederate flags when you live in a certain neighborhood, it's like, I don't, like, I can't be bothered. You guys want me to be so angry and triggered, so I can't be on my purpose. That's so weird. Like, that's so crazy to me. Like, so I'm not gonna be triggered. I'm not, like, I cannot live my life that way. Some people do. Some people are like all about it. They spend every waking moment angry. And listen, I know that there's racist people in the world. I 100% believe it. But you know, I think you need to go get a life. But anyway, you guys, I'm gonna get off of here because my phone's actually dying, and I'm doing this on my phone because my computer was not set up for this. But anyway, you guys, thanks for listening. And I will post the video about the Amfest reactions soon, as soon as it's edited and everything. Yeah, the Bible declares church was never building. That's actually true. The church is actually, like, there's a global church, and then there's which is like the people. And then in Acts, what we see is a model of like a local church, and it was actually like small home churches, not these like massive mega churches. You're 100% correct about that. Yeah, you're 100% correct, Sam Setson. So this idea that, like, yes, you should not neglect the gathering of believers. That's what the Bible says. Do not neglect gathering with other believers. And that's why they had a model of preachers and teachers. But there was never this model of a massive mega church just giving out, giving out, taking people's money, right? All right, y'all. See you later.